The chandeliers glowed like captured stars, their golden light shimmering across crystal glasses, polished marble floors, and gowns that flowed like water. The hall buzzed with gentle laughter and murmured conversations, the sort of polite noise people made when they were performing happiness. A string quartet played near the grand staircase, their music elegant and distant, like something heard from the edge of a dream. Elias Blackwood stood near the balcony doors, posture composed, expression unreadable. To everyone watching, he was the perfect image of wealth and ease. He had trained himself to wear calm, the way others wore silk. But beneath the surface, his thoughts pulled tight, like a wire drawn to breaking. He hadn't wanted to come tonight. He rarely wanted to attend events like this anymore. They felt staged, airless, full of eyes that searched only for advantage. But his company was a sponsor of the gala, and duty was duty, no matter how much it scraped against him. He was turning to leave for a breath of fresh air when he saw her. Juliet. Her presence sliced through the room like a blade dipped in honey. She looked exactly as she always had, luminous skin, perfectly styled hair, a dress designed to capture attention and hold it hostage. Her smile, slow, confident, possessive, told him she had seen him before he had seen her, and she was coming. Elias's chest tightened. His fingers curled slightly. Old instincts. Old wounds. Before, her approach would have meant surrender. He had once convinced himself that was love. Now, it only meant danger. She glided through the space as though gravity itself moved for her. People parted. Conversations paused. Her heels clicked sharply across the marble floor, each step measured and deliberate. She loved audiences. She loved spectacle. "Elias," she purred, reaching out as though the reunion was inevitable. "I knew you couldn't stay away from me." Her voice curled around him like smoke. He did not want a scene. He did not want her hands on him. And more than anything, he did not want to be dragged back into the gravity of her orbit, where love was performance and affection was leverage. His pulse climbed. He needed to leave the moment before it swallowed him whole. He turned, and his hand moved before thought. He reached out, and his fingers closed around someone else's hand. A woman, standing near a display of orchids, startled slightly at the sudden touch. Her eyes lifted to his, wide, warm, unguarded. Soft brown hair framed her face, and her dress was simple compared to the glittering gowns around her. Nothing about her was performative. She looked real, steady, human in a room full of masks. "Please," Elias said, voice low and urgent, but gentle. "Just walk with me." There was something in his tone, an honesty stripped bare. It asked, not demanded. It revealed something he had never let strangers see. Fear. The woman blinked once, understanding without needing explanation. She nodded. Their hands remained joined as they stepped forward together, passing Juliet without a word. The crowd shifted around them, indifferent, unaware that something enormous, had just happened. Elias didn't look back. Amara didn't ask where they were going. Her hand stayed in his, like it belonged there. And the world, for the first time in a very long time, felt real. The music from the gala softened behind them as Elias and Amara walked down the quiet corridor. Their hands were still joined, but neither of them spoke yet. Their footsteps echoed in the long hallway, where tall windows let in gentle evening light. The world outside was dim and calm, like it had paused to listen. Elias finally stopped and released a slow breath. His shoulders looked less, heavy now, as if being away from the crowd allowed him to breathe again. Amara watched him carefully, unsure of what she had just stepped into. She had simply seen a man who looked like he was drowning, and she had chosen to hold on. He turned to her, and his eyes were not cold, like the rumors of him suggested. They were tired, gentle, almost grateful. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I know that must have been strange. I just needed to get away." Amara nodded slowly. She did not ask for explanation. Something in her understood the feeling of needing to escape. From the entrance to the hallway, footsteps approached. He recognized the rhythm instantly. Juliet. Elias tensed like a shadow had touched him. Juliet called his name again, her voice sharp, though she tried to make it sound sweet. She was close but had not yet seen them. Elias looked at Amara again and his voice was almost a whisper. "Please stay. Just a little longer." Amara stepped closer without hesitation, as if she knew her presence was the difference between breathing and suffocating. Juliet appeared at the end of the corridor, her heels stopping abruptly when she saw them. Her gaze locked on their joined hands, and something dark flickered in her expression. She hid it quickly behind. "A poised smile, O Elias. I did not realize you had company." Her tone was honey mixed with poison. Amara felt the temperature in the hallway shift, not cold, but sharp. Elias did not step away from Amara. He did not explain her. He did not apologize. His silence alone was a declaration. Juliet looked at Amara with the slow, assessing stare of someone who believed everything in the world had a price. And she was checking to see what this woman cost. And Amara, for the first time, truly understood. This was not just an ex. This was someone who had never learned to lose. The air between the three of them held something electric. Not attraction, not jealousy, but warning. Juliet smiled again, but her eyes remained hard. "I will see you inside, Elias," she said. But this time the words sounded like a promise and a threat wrapped as one. She turned and walked away, her heels snapping across the marble like breaking glass. When she was gone, Elias closed his eyes for a moment. Then he turned to Amara. "I am sorry. I did not mean to drag you into something like this." Amara shook her head softly. "It is all right. Everyone needs help sometimes. Even those who look like they never could." For the first time, his guarded mask cracked and a quiet truth slipped through. "I do not know how to be known," he said, and Amara, with a gentleness that held the strength of 10 storms, replied, "Then let us begin with this moment, one breath at a time." The distance between them changed, not closeness, not love, but recognition. Two souls, no longer strangers, just two people standing in a quiet corridor, holding on to something they did not yet have a name for. The corridor felt quieter now. The world outside the walls of the gala seemed far away, like another life altogether. Elias and Amara stood there with the soft glow of light touching their faces. His breathing had steadied. Hers had as well, but something new hung in the air between them. A question. Neither of them yet knew how to hold. Amara finally spoke, her voice soft. "You do not have to explain anything. Not tonight." Elias looked at her longer than was comfortable. Not searching, not judging, just seeing it. Had been a long time since someone simply allowed him to exist without expecting something in return. Amara felt her chest tighten, not in fear, but in a quiet understanding. She was about to ask him if he was all right, when a voice called from behind. Not Juliet. Someone else. "Mr. Blackwood, the board members are requesting you." A staff member stood at the entrance of the corridor waiting politely. Elias straightened automatically. The mask tried to return. The practiced posture of a man. The world believed could never break. But his hand did not let go of Amara's. "Not yet. Tell them I will join shortly." His tone was calm, but the message was different. "I choose my breathing moment first." The staff member nodded and left. Amara looked down at their hands. His grip was steady, not possessive, not urgent, but intentional. like he had remembered what it meant to hold on to something real. She slowly withdrew her hand, not to pull away, but to give him space. "You should go," she said gently, her voice warm enough to soften the words. He did not move at first. He studied her again, as if memorizing her presence. "May I see you again?" he asked. There was no demand, only sincerity and a quiet vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to witness. Amara did not answer right away. She had a life outside these walls, a life built from healing and caution. Yet something about this moment felt like a crossroads. "Yes," she said, "just once, just to see what is true." Small breath left him, almost like relief, almost like hope. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit and handed her a simple card with his personal number. No company phone, no assistant, no barrier. She took it without hesitation. Their eyes held for a heartbeat longer. Then he turned toward the gala hall. Amara walked toward the exit doors. And for a moment, the world seemed to pause and hold them both. Inside the hall, Juliet watched Elias return. Her smile was back, but now it was sharp. Calculated, her laughter was sweet, but her gaze was ice. She followed the direction Elias had come from. She saw the glass door still swaying. She saw the lingering warmth of something she could not control. Her jaw tightened. If Amara had been any other woman, Juliet would have dismissed her. But Juliet had recognized something terrifying. Elias had looked at that woman with something real, and Juliet Gray had never lost anything she wanted, not once in her life. Her voice lowered to a whisper. Only she could hear. "We will see. How long that lasts." The night did not end with peace. It ended with two souls crossing paths, and one watching in the dark, planning how to break them apart. Days passed after the gala, yet the memory of that night lingered, like the last note of a song that refused to fade. Amara returned to her ordinary life, teaching her small art class in a quiet studio filled with brushes and unfinished paintings. The children laughed and painted with bright colors. Their joy was simple, pure, untouched by the sharp edges of the world. But sometimes when Amara rinsed her brushes, she felt the echo of his hand in hers. She had not expected the memory to stay, yet it did, calm and warm, like a secret she carried between heartbeats. Across the city, Elias sat in his office high above the streets. The skyline stretched, before him glittering with steel and light, yet he felt none of its power. His mind wandered back to her steady gaze, to the silence that felt comfortable rather than crushing, to the way she did not try to impress or possess. He had been surrounded by people his entire life, but rarely had he been seen. His assistant entered quietly, placing documents before him. Meetings, stock updates, international calls, things that once ruled his world. But Elias felt a shift, a quiet tilt in the axis of everything. He picked up his phone. Not the business line, the personal one, the one with only one new number in it. Meanwhile, Juliet sat in a private lounge surrounded by friends who served as an audience rather than companions. Their laughter was loud, but hers was silent. Her eyes were fixed on her phone screen. Scrolling, searching. She had found Amara, a small art teacher. No wealth, no status, no advantage. Juliet smiled, and it was not the smile the world loved. "So that is who you are," her voice was. Silk dipped in something colder. She stood and her friends fell silent. Juliet knew how to make people quiet without raising her voice. Find out everything about her, where she works, where she lives, who she loves, what she fears. Her tone was calm, almost gentle, which made it far more dangerous. Back at the art studio, the children had left, and Amara was closing up. The light from the window cast long golden shapes across the floor. Dust floated like soft stars. Her phone buzzed on the table. She hesitated, then answered. Her heart did not race, but it noticed. Elias asked if she would meet him. Not at a restaurant, not at a hotel, not anywhere loud, but at a quiet little bookstore hidden behind a garden cafe. A place where voices were soft and time. Move slower. She said yes. Amara walked through the late afternoon streets. She felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not excitement. Something gentler. Something that asked to be trusted. But from across the street, a pair of eyes followed her, watching, measuring, waiting, the calm before the storm had begun, and none of them yet knew how deep the story would go. The bookstore was quiet and warm, the kind of place where pages held the scent of time and stories whispered in the silence. Amara stepped inside, her hands lightly brushing the edges of books as she walked. Soft yellow lamps cast a gentle glow over wooden shelves and a small window, let in the late afternoon sun. Elias was already there. He stood near a shelf of old poetry books. His posture relaxed, his expression unguarded in a way Amara had not seen before. When he turned and saw her, his eyes changed. Not brighter, just clearer. As if seeing her allowed him to breathe again, Amara walked closer. They did not rush to speak. The silence between them did not feel empty. Finally, Elias spoke in a quiet, steady voice. I wanted to meet somewhere where I am not who they say I am. Just a man who is trying to learn how to be real again. Amara slowly nodded. Then let us speak as people. Not names. They moved to a small table tucked behind a row of travel books. Outside the window, soft leaves rustled and a gentle breeze tapped lightly against the glass. They spoke softly. Not about wealth. Not about crowds. Not about the night of the gala, but about childhood. About art. About moments that shape them. About how hard it is to trust your own heart after it has been mishandled. With each word, the distance between them grew smaller. Not physically, but soul deep. Amara noticed how Elias listened. Not to answer, but to understand. It was rare. It was disarming. Hours passed like minutes, but the world outside had not forgotten them. Across the street, Juliet sat in the back of a sleek black car, her gaze fixed on the window of the bookstore. Her expression calm, too calm, like ice that had chosen not to crack, but to sharpen. Beside her, a man scrolled through a folder of information. He spoke in a low voice. Amara Hayes lives alone, teaches art classes. No family nearby, no scandals. Nothing to attack. Juliet's lips curved. Everyone has a weakness. We just have to find it. Inside the bookstore, Amara and Elias stood to leave. Elias reached to open the door for her. When his hand brushed hers, it was not dramatic. It was not intense. It was peaceful. Safe. Like something finding its place. They stepped outside, and the evening air wrapped around them warm and soft. But someone was watching. Someone whose smile did not reach her eyes as Amara and Elias walked away. Juliet whispered into the phone. Begin. The car drove off silent. Purposeful. Amara did not notice, Elias did not sense it yet. The shift in the world around them. But something had started. A thread pulled. A fuse lit. A heart targeted. Not because they had fallen in love, but because they had begun to heal. And healing was something Juliet Gray would never allow. The next morning began softly for Amara. The sunlight filtered through her curtains in gentle golden streaks. She woke with a strange warmth in her chest. Not excitement. Not fear. Something balanced. Something calm. As if the world had shifted just slightly into place. She prepared for her. Day at the art studio. Children would be arriving soon. Their laughter always filled the room with color, brighter than any paint. But when she reached the door of the studio, she paused. A bouquet of perfect white roses sat waiting, wrapped in a ribbon, tied with impeccable precision. There was no card. The roses looked expensive, intentional, elegantly arranged in the kind of way that did not speak of affection, but possession. Amara felt her breath still. Her heart did not race, but it tightened. She carried the flowers inside and set them on the table. The scent was too heavy, too sweet, too much. She continued with class, but her mind remained quiet in the wrong way, not peaceful. Alert. Meanwhile, across the city, Elias sat in a meeting he could not focus. On his thoughts, kept drifting to the memory of Amara in the bookstore. The soft way she listened. The way she did not treat him as a symbol or a trophy or a shield. He did not notice Juliet enter the building until the door to the meeting room opened. She walked in without knocking. Her smile a perfect practiced curve. Everyone in the room went silent. Elias stood slowly, his expression unreadable, but there was a subtle tension in his shoulders. Something braced. Something defended. Juliet stepped closer. Not too close. Just close enough to be seen as familiar. She spoke in a voice so soft it did not match her eyes. I just wanted to talk, like old times. Elias did not respond. His silence was louder than any refusal. Juliet continued. Saw you yesterday in that little bookstore. With that girl. The word girl was dipped in disdain, as if it were an insult. A dismissal, Elias breathed slowly. Controlled, contained. Juliet leaned in by only a fraction, but the hallway between them darkened. You think you found something pure, something untouched, but people like her break easier, and I would hate to see your disappointment. There was no threat in her tone. Only certainty. Elias spoke at last, his voice steady. Do not involve her. Juliet smiled. A sweet, slow, delicate smile, as if he had told her something amusing. Outside the studio, Amara finished cleaning the brushes. The day was quiet again, gentle again, until her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. No name. No greeting. It read, We should talk. You have no idea who he really is. Amara stared at the screen. The message did not frighten her. It disappointed her. She knew this world. The world where power dripped from words instead of weapons. The world where secrets did not reveal truth, but twisted it. But she did not delete the message. She just placed the phone face down and stood by the window, outside. The wind picked up, the leaves rustled, and the first shadow of a storm began to gather. Amara did not reply to the message, but silence has its own weight. It follows you. It lingers. It whispers. She felt it all day. A quiet question sitting just behind her ribs. Not doubt in Elias, but doubt in her place in his world. She had spent her life choosing peace over spectacle. Soft over sharp. Steady over grand. But Elias's world was not soft, and someone in that world had noticed her. When evening came, she walked home slowly through familiar streets. The city glowed in warm orange lights. Cars passed. People laughed. Life moved as it always had, yet Amara felt watched, not by eyes, but by possibility. She reached her apartment, locked the door, sat on the floor for a long moment, with her back leaned against it, just breathing, across the city. Elias sat alone in his apartment. The view stretched endlessly. City lights looked like stars fallen to earth, but he did not feel their beauty. His phone sat in his hand, still and silent. He wanted to call her, not to explain, not to ask, just to hear her voice, and remember that there were still places in his life untouched by Juliet's shadow. But he did not call. He remembered the look on Amara's face when she saw the bouquet. He did not send it. And yet it had arrived. He understood what Juliet was doing. She was not attacking. She was circling slow patient. Precise. Juliet did not break things loudly. She broke them quietly, from the inside, where no one could see, until it was too late. Meanwhile, Juliet sat in her penthouse with a glass of wine, turning slowly between her fingers. Her reflection shimmered in the tall windows. Behind her, the city sparkled. Unaware, she was not angry. Anger was messy, uncontrolled beneath her. What she felt was certainty. Elias had always been hers. Not because of love, but because she believed she was the only one who understood how to shape him. Amara. However, Amara was dangerous. Not because of power, but because of kindness. Kindness could take root. Kindness could grow. Kindness could heal, and healed men do, not return to cages. Juliet placed her glass down, and her voice slipped into the quiet airtime to unravel her. Back at Amara's apartment, the air felt still. She stood and walked to the window. The city lights flickered below. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from the same unknown number. If you want to know the truth. Meet me tomorrow. Café Solace. No threats. No demands. Just truth. Amara stared at the message. Her heartbeat did not race. Her breath did not quicken. But something inside her turned. Something old. Something familiar. The instinct that tells you when the next step will change everything. She typed only one word, yes, across the city. Elias stood from his chair, his decision forming before thought could catch it. He needed to see her. Not tomorrow, not later. Now 2 paths began moving, one toward healing, one toward destruction, and the night held its breath, waiting for which would arrive first, Café. Solace was quiet in the early morning. The light was soft like faded gold, and the smell of fresh bread floated through the air. Amara sat at a small corner table, her hands resting lightly in her lap. She looked calm, but there was a deep stillness in her eyes, the kind that appears when a person is preparing to face something they cannot yet name. The bell above the door chimed. Juliet entered. She did not look out of place in the cozy café. She carried presence like perfume, effortless, heavy, designed to draw attention even when unwanted. She approached the table and sat down without waiting for invitation. Her smile was slow and practiced, but her eyes held no warmth. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Her voice was soft enough to almost sound kind. Amara did not return the smile. She simply nodded. Waiting, Juliet studied her for a moment. Her gaze moved like a scalpel, precise, sharp. Searching, you seem gentle, Juliet said. But gentle things break easily. Amara did not flinch. Gentle does not mean weak. Juliet leaned back slightly. The faintest flicker crossed her expression, like she had not expected resistance so calm. You do not know Elias. Not truly. Not the man he becomes when he feels cornered. Not the weight he carries, nor the shadows he hides. Amara listened. Her heartbeat steady. She knew this tactic. Fear disguised, as concern, control disguised as truth. Juliet continued. People like him are not meant for quiet lives or soft love. They consume, they demand. And you will be swallowed. For a moment, silence filled the space. The air held still, but it was not Amara who shifted. It was Juliet, because Amara's eyes no longer looked uncertain. They looked clear. I did not come here to hear warnings. Amara said, I came to see how far you are willing to go. Juliet paused. just long enough to show surprise. And that was when the bell above the door chimed again. Elias entered. No suit, no entourage, no armor, just a man breathing. He saw them. His jaw tightened, but his steps were steady. He came to the table and stood beside Amara. Not possessive, not claiming, but present. Juliet's smile returned, but now it was thin like paper near flame, so she said, "Here we are." Elias did not sit. His voice was steady and quiet. "Juliet, this ends now." Juliet looked between them. Slowly her expression shifted. Not anger, realization. She stood, and her final words were spoken like prophecy. Not threat. We will see how this ends, when the truth is no longer hidden. She walked out. The bell chimed again, and the cafe fell into stillness. Amara's breath trembled just once. Elias sat across from her, his eyes searching hers. "No walls, no masks. I will tell you everything," he said. And Amara nodded, ready. Even if she did not know for what. Outside wind gathered, clouds thickened. The storm had finally arrived. If you want, I will now begin. Chapter 9. Where the emotional truth is revealed, where hearts break open, where love begins to choose its shape. The world outside the cafe seemed to fade as Elias looked at Amara. The quiet hum of the street, the gentle clink of cups, the soft footsteps of morning life. All of it blurred into the background. Only their eyes held the moment. He did not speak right away. He did not rush. Truth needed space, and he had never given it space before. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, but the steadiness felt earned. Not natural. I was not always like this, he began. The world did not shape me gently. It carved pieces away and left what it wanted. Amara listened, her gaze soft, not pitying, just present. Elias continued, "My parents died when I was young. The business passed to me before I was ready. I learned quickly that power draws crowds, but not love." His hands rested lightly on the table, palms open, not clenched. The first sign that he wanted no shields between them. Juliet entered my life when I was still trying to understand who I was. She was brilliant, confident. She made me feel like she had chosen me, but I did not realize she had not chosen me. She had chosen my world. Amara's chest tightened. Not from jealousy, but understanding. Elias lowered his gaze for a moment. There were moments I thought it was love, until love became expectation. Punishment, a game I did not know how to win. He lifted his eyes slowly, meeting hers again. I stayed too long, because I thought if I worked harder, I could make myself worthy of being loved. The quiet in the cafe deepened. It was the kind of silence that reveals the truth of a soul. Amara spoke softly, not to comfort him, but to anchor him. "And when did you realize you were not the one who was unworthy?" Elias breathed out, a breath that sounded like release. "The night I left, I walked through this city with nothing but my own thoughts. And I realized I had forgotten how to exist outside of someone else's grasp." His voice softened further. "When I saw you that night, you did not pull me. You did not demand. You just saw me." Amara felt her heart shift like a slow sunrise breaking darkness layer by layer. But she also felt the weight of what she needed to say. She spoke carefully, each word steady. "I am not afraid of who you were, but I need to know who you are choosing to be. Not for me. For yourself." Elias looked at her, and something quiet changed in his expression. Resolve, not desperation, not longing. Choice. Then his phone buzzed on the table. Both of them looked at it. A single message on the screen, from Juliet. It read, "You should tell her about the night, at the lake. Or I will." The air tightened. Elias's face went still. Not fear, memory. Amara watched him, her voice barely above a breath. What happened at the lake? The storm did not break. It simply began to thicken around them. The moment held still in the hum. Cafe like the entire world had paused to listen. Elias looked at the message on his phone, then lifted his eyes to Amara. There was no retreat in his gaze, only truth rising to the surface after being buried for too long. The night at the lake was the night everything ended. He began, his voice low, steady, as if each word carried weight. Juliet and I were arguing, not shouting, not chaos, just pressure, expectation, control wrapped in calm tones in closed rooms. We were supposed to celebrate an anniversary, but her plans were not about us. They were about image, about power, about making sure the world saw us the way she wanted. I told her I could not live like that anymore, that the life we built was not a partnership, but a cage. She did not shout. She simply smiled and told me I would never leave, because she knew every weakness I had. We were by the lake behind my family's old property. The water was black glass. Still watching, he paused, not to avoid the truth, but to gather it carefully. I walked away from her, down to the edge of the water, and I realized I did not know how to exist outside of who she wanted me to be. I had forgotten myself. I had forgotten what I loved. I had forgotten how to breathe. Amara's eyes softened. Listening, understanding, not judging. Juliet followed me down the slope. She grabbed my arm, not in violence but in certainty. She told me if I left, she would ruin every person tied to me, every employee, every family friend, every life connected to my company. Elias breathed slowly, the memory full in his voice. I realized then that love should not feel like fear. So I let go. I let the relationship end. But Juliet did not let go of me. The cafe felt heavier, not dark, just real. Amara spoke, her voice steady. So the lake was not a secret of guilt, but a moment of breaking and awakening, yes. Elias said I did not hurt her. I did not betray her. I simply chose myself. And she never forgave that. Amara leaned back slowly, her eyes reflecting something deep and warm. Then, this is not a story of your past returning. It is a story of your freedom being tested. Elias looked at her with something like awe. He had expected fear or distance, but she offered understanding, strength, presence. Outside, the sky darkened, but inside, something brightened. Amara reached across the table and placed her hand over his, not claiming, not promising, just joining. I am not here to save you, she said, and I do not need you to save me. But if we choose to walk forward, we walk as equals, not as owner and owned, not as rescuer and rescued, but as two people choosing gently, fully, freely. Elias nodded, not as a man who won something, but as a man who finally understood what choosing truly meant. They stood from the table, not rushed, not dramatic, just together. Outside, the wind began to settle. The storm had come, but it did not break them. It revealed them. Juliet watched from across the street, her expression unreadable, not rage, not defeat, something quieter. Recognition. She finally understood what she could never break, not love, but connection. Genuine, steady, unforced. Amara and Elias walked away side by side, their hands brushing but not yet holding. Not lovers, not bound, but two souls choosing to learn one another slowly. The city lights glowed like constellations. The night air was soft, and for the first time in a long time, Elias looked like a man who was truly alive. The story did not end with a kiss or a promise or a declaration. It ended with two hearts beginning, not because they needed each other, but because they recognized each other. A beginning whispered into the quiet of the world, and the world this time listened.